Chapter 1, Before the Beginning. Something was wrong. Samantha watched two people rush down the hall, their arms overflowing with file folders. A man in a suit approached the receptionist and whispered in her ear. Her expression darkened and she nodded. Jack sat with his legs bridging the right angle of the chairs that lined the waiting area walls. His eyes were closed, his head leaned back and swayed slightly to the music coming from his earbuds. Samantha nudged him with her knee and said, "Something's wrong." He removed one earbud and opened one eye. A slow, rhythmic drumming and a long, sliding note from an electric guitar spilled out. "Black Sabbath," Jack said, raising the bud with a smile. Samantha raised an eyebrow and said, "Interesting choice." "I said, I think something's wrong," and she nodded towards the conference room. Jack shrugged. "Of course there's something wrong. That's the thing about life. There's always something wrong," he said. "But Edwin said this meeting was just a formality. He said we'd be in and out, rubber stamped," she said. "Okay, so relaxed. It probably has nothing to do with us. And if it does, we'll jump off that bridge when we get to it," said Jack, and went back to his music. Samantha stared at him for a few seconds. He was always throwing out phrases like this. He pinched off nuggets of apathy like they were pearls of wisdom. Done is done, and good enough is still good. Why should I care about time? Time doesn't care about me. He was like a guru of mediocrity. Samantha began pacing. She thought about how honored she had been when she was offered this guardianship position. She was not unlike most first-time human parents in her naivety. She had imagined how rewarding it would be to guide another being from birth to destiny, inspiring them towards love, creativity, and beauty. She envisioned how much better the world could be if each child did not have to begin their lives emptied of wisdom. Maybe she could spare her charge having to make all the same mistakes as the last poor, clueless soul. Then along came Jack. Jack's experience and self-assurance had been a comfort to Samantha at first. He was an intermediate soul who had chosen an intermediate path. He had been mildly enthusiastic about their upcoming launch and had been generally agreeable to all of Samantha's suggestions. But she had mistaken his indifference for confidence. As the studying, testing, and preparations had progressed, Samantha had been frustrated when it seemed as though she was doing all the work and all the caring. She brought these concerns up in her private sessions with her own guardian Edwin and suggested that maybe she and Jack were not a good match. "You're free to choose someone else and start over if you like, but the council feels that you will be an excellent balance for each other. This will be a good opportunity for you to work through your tendencies towards perfectionism and unrealistic expectations," said Edwin's take. That had stung. She knew she was a bit of an overachiever, but she merely expected the very best from herself. He had boosted her confidence a little by saying, "The council clearly has faith in you if they are starting you off at the intermediate level." In any case, backing out was out of the question. She was no quitter, and she would not let everyone down. Being a guardian meant that she would have to work with all kinds of people in all kinds of situations. She would do her very best, and she would get Jack to his destiny, no matter the cost. Samantha peeked down the hall and heard raised voices coming from the conference room. She walked to the receptionist's desk. "Pardon me, we've been waiting quite a while for our pre-launch meeting. Is anything wrong?" she said. The receptionist smiled and said, "I really can't say." Samantha nodded and said, "Do you have any idea how much longer we may have to wait?" The receptionist smiled again and said, "I really can't say, but I'd be happy to get you some tea or coffee or maybe a blanket and a pillow." "Oh, wow. No, but thank you. Maybe later," said Samantha. Edwin raced past. Edwin, what's going on? We've been waiting for ages," Samantha called after him. "Sit tight. Everything will be fine. No need to worry, he said as he disappeared into the conference room. She sighed and turned back to the waiting area. She pulled index cards out of her messenger bag and ran through her presentation. Why can't you just relax? Jack asked. Because I've put my heart and soul into preparing for this day, said Samantha. Well, that's your problem, Sam. You care too much, he said. Samantha sighed. She had told him at least a dozen times that she did not care for nicknames and asked him to call her Samantha. She said, or maybe you care too little. Jack snorted. Well, I'm not trying to be perfect, Jack said snidely. Obviously, but isn't every lifetime a precious opportunity to touch people's lives and make the world a little better? Jack stared at her for a moment, then began to chuckle. Oh, you're serious. I thought you were quoting a greeting card for a second there. Honestly, Sam, you're so weird, he said. Samantha was instantly enraged. No one had ever brought out the worst in her the way he could. Jack was always questioning her essence, making her feel ridiculous about the qualities she liked most in herself. And you're a real asshole, Jack, she said. Jack threw his head back, laughed, and said, Wow, what kind of angel talks like that? An honest one that cares too much, said Samantha. Samantha went to the furthest chair and plopped down. She fought the urge to hate Jack. She fought to have faith in the council in putting them together. Maybe she couldn't do this. Maybe she shouldn't do this. Maybe she should walk into that conference room and say, I'm very sorry, but I cannot work with this asshole. She closed her eyes and let herself imagine how good that would feel. Then she imagined what that would do for her future as a guardian. She took deep breaths until she felt her heart begin to slow. Each time she repeated her mantra, I am prepared, I am worthy, I am equal to this task. Another deep breath, and she opened her eyes to discover Jack sitting next to her, watching her. Concerned that he had pushed the teasing too far, he said, Sammy, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be a jerk. I would understand if you decided that you don't want to work with me, and patted her on the knee. She studied him for a moment. You want me to give up on you, she said. Jack gave her a half smile and said, I mean, it wouldn't break my heart if I had to spend more time here while they find another gullible newbie to train to be my guardian. Samantha shook her head and said, You are unbelievable. You don't know what it's like down there, Sam. Trust me. It's no walk in the park. Most people live pretty mundane lives. I'll be born, I'll grow up, I'll work myself half to death, maybe make some more people, and if I'm lucky, I'll die before I get old, said Jack. Samantha clapped him on the back and said, Well, Jack, I have to be honest. I was tempted to quit you, but you have just steeled my resolve to see this through. Jack sighed, stared at the floor, nodded. Well, can you at least lighten up? They aren't sending us down there to cure cancer or solve world hunger. Samantha shook her head and said, Nope, I'm not going to lighten up, and you will fulfill your destiny. Yeah, we'll give it our best shot, said Jack. Samantha's jaw clenched. Samantha, Jack, we're ready for you, said Edwin. He pulled a handkerchief from his suit pocket and dabbed at his forehead as he led them quickly down the hall. Listen, a lot is going on. This happens sometimes. Changes may have to be made, Edwin said. He was flustered. Samantha had never seen him be anything but calm and composed. Changes? What kind of changes, Edwin? He waved his handkerchief. No reason to panic. These things happen sometimes. Nature and free will sure can throw a monkey wrench into everything. Sometimes there's an influx of incoming and we have to adjust to the outgoing to balance things, you see. It always works out, though, he said, and opened the conference room door for them. When Samantha hesitated, he gave her a forced smile and nodded her towards the table. The room was abuzz with activity. There was no place for them to sit at the table. People were coming and going. Papers and devices were being shuffled around. Edwin raised his voice above the din and announced, "Everyone, this is our brand new guardian, Samantha, and her new charge, Jack." No one looked up. A mature man at the head of the table cleared his throat, and a hush fell over the room. "Welcome, Samantha and Jack. Forgive us. We have had quite a day, and we're dealing with a bit of a situation," he said. He took a deep breath and said, "I am Gabe of the High Council. To my left is Derek from the legal department. To his left is Claire, our decade coordinator. Then we have Louise from ethics monitoring, James level 6 guardian, Joelle level 7 guardian, Gavin level 3 guardian, Ruth level 7 guardian, and of course you know Edwin." As they were introduced, each one gave a brief and obligatory smile and then quickly turned their attentions back to their work. Samantha gave a nervous smile and said, "I would just like to start by saying how truly honored I am to have this opportunity to contribute towards the plan, and I appreciate you entrusting me with this responsibility." No one looked up. Samantha looked at Jack. He smiled and shrugged. She looked to Edwin. He smiled encouragingly at her and mouthed, "Your presentation." Right, the presentation, she thought. Samantha dug in her messenger bag, pulled out a small device, and pointed it at the screen behind her. Jack's face flashed up on the screen. She began, "Well, this is Jack. You've just met Jack. Jack is standing right here." She chuckled. No response. Edwin gave her a get-on-with-it gesture. She picked up her pace and continued. "After much research and consideration, charts and maps flashed across the screen. We have chosen Garden City, Kansas, USA, and the home of Eileen and James Gerhardt, followed by Rockhurst University, after which Jack will start a nonprofit organization that will—" "Kansas? We can't send them to Kansas," piped up Derek. "I'm sorry, Stephanie," said Gabe. "Samantha," Edwin corrected. "I'm sorry, Samantha. There has been a change of plans. We'd like Jack to go to Haddon Heights, New Jersey, and be born to Virginia and John Johnson. His destiny would be to free one Walter James Walker from prison. Is that okay with you, Jack?" More shuffling and passing of papers and buzzing. A stunned Samantha said, "New Jersey? But we've done all the research. I can show you the data Jack has chosen." This time it was Claire who spoke up. "We understand, Samantha, but it really would be best if you and Jack went to New Jersey, assuming Jack is willing, of course." The room grew quiet, and everyone stared at Jack. He shrugged and said, "Sure, why not?" "Excellent," said Gabe, and the room once again buzzed with activity. Samantha was dumbstruck. She could not comprehend why Jack didn't care that all their plans and preparations were out the window. Louise smiled sympathetically at Samantha and said, "Trust us, dear. It really is for the best." Dirk stood and quickly said, "Samantha, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear to make every effort to assist your charge in the realization of his destiny, and to, above all else, respect the sanctity of his free will and promise not to impinge upon it?" Samantha said, "I do." Derek handed Samantha several large envelopes. "Here are your assignment papers, background info, timeline guides, and access codes. And here is your device and contact info for James, Joelle, Ruth, and Gavin. Their charges will be key people in Jack's life. You'll need to confer with them at times and enlist their help," said Derek. "Of course, you can also call upon Edwin if you get into trouble, but we would hope that you would keep that to a minimum now that you are a guardian yourself." "Good luck," said Gabe. A murmur of good luck came from around the table, and Edwin was suddenly ushering them out of the conference room and down the hall. Jack let out a laugh. As they passed the waiting area, Edwin called over his shoulder, "Marcus, Crystal, you're up next." Samantha sputtered, "New Jersey? Good luck." "Edwin, what happened?" Edwin pushed the button for the elevator. Don't you worry, Samantha. These things happen sometimes. New Jersey is actually lovely. You'll see. Everything's going to be just fine. Everything happens for a reason, he said, and shoved them into the elevator. As the door closed, there was a flicker and a flash of light. Samantha heard Jack say, "Well, here goes nothing," and felt a sudden sensation of being drained down and away. The end of chapter 1.